Introductions. Welcome, everyone. I think first of all, let me thank everyone in terms of participation. It's tough and I would say testing time for everyone. And despite all the odds, if you've joined this particular webinar, really appreciate you sparing time. And my intent through this webinar is to really talk about the effect of this pandemic called COVID on artificial intelligence, but more importantly, not from a viewpoint in terms of the business, but more in terms of how the enterprises today, post the normalcy and recovery phase, will tackle and adopt artificial intelligence. I think if you really look at today in terms of what's happening, and this is a kind of a, let's say, phase where we are talking about flattening the curve across geographies in terms of stopping and rather mitigating this pandemic. But if we talk about the CXOs today who have the remit to keep the lights on, keep the business as usual, it's a hard task. I mean, there were days, I remember there used to be these 4x4 quadrants talking about CXOs being managed or rather working in a scenario where they could actually look at the business metrics and talk about what it means from a top line or a bottom line, or in terms of the expenditure, what they do as part of the business. And that was the holy grail of their performance. Scenario today is more about new facets of what I say strategic conundrums. Innovation, business transformation are the new facets over there. And so is how do you bring hyper differentiation within your organization? And not to miss, very topical scenario is about the future of work. How do we really manage working remotely? How do we manage the expectation of millennials and Gen Z? And what it means in terms of really outscoring the competition by all means. And if that's not enough, we are talking about today artificial intelligence being the most used business lexicon in the boardrooms and within the CXOs community. What does it mean today when we are talking about artificial intelligence in the boardroom being kind of more strategic in nature? I want to give a narrative out here, and this is an example which best fits the scenario why organizations today are really clamoring and saying, look, we need an AI strategy. There are close to about 2,200 insurance firms across the globe. Life, property and casualty, reinsurance, title, mortgage, different facets of insurance firms. And all of them have their own ways how they have worked and how they have differentiated over the years. Legacy of these insurance companies goes as far as 150 to 200 years with some of them. 5 years back, a company called Lemonade came into the picture and disrupted the whole insurance industry with one platform. The platform was a one-stop marketplace for all the insurance needs. Anything, any kind of, let's say, consumer wants to go look at the platform, buy an insurance, look at the different competitive rates, look at the features, look at different kind of a facet. It was all available on the platform. And how they devised the strategy is something to listen about. Now today, after 5 years, the market capitalization of Lemonade far more exceeds the 150-year-old company like the MetLife. The very reason why they have differentiated themselves is what they call an AI strategy. And it's nothing but what I say the inverse of business strategy. What they do, their platform, which has millions of transactions and experiences, being provided on given day. The platform generates multiple data points, several millions of data points on a daily basis. Those data points feed and kind of generate the best of data lakes and the data pipes for the data engines to fire. The data engines build the best of algorithms which are machine-enabled, self-learning, self-intuitive. And those algorithms which are high-powered, IP-able, patented by Lemonade decide the strategy for the company. That's how the inverse cycle is what we are talking about in terms of how AI has become a Trojan horse for the organization and a big, big differentiator. Now, we also know that today the remit of the CXOs is not just about differentiation, it's also about breeding innovation, disruption, and transformation within their enterprises. And that's where artificial intelligence provides that catalyst impact what they're missing today. And during the subsequent course of the slides, I'll talk about what this AI strategy is all about. Let me do a kind of a pullback. And the story is about 10 years back. We all are aware how the whole metamorphosis of analytics AI happened. But let me just give you a very brief scenario. What was considered to be the bastion for the information technology teams to create a daily management information report for the CXOs, capturing all the business elements and the key metrics, where business processes were in the center and analytics capability used to be at the fringes. And this is a scenario which I'm talking 10 years back. 2014, many of you are aware, came an acronym which became a buzzword, SMAC, Social Mobile Analytics Cloud. SMAC was the coinage which was in conjunction with the digital transformation coming into the picture. And from that journey, we are talking about 2018, 2019 scenario where analytics became pervasive, mainstream, and got smartly embedded into the mainstream. And then came a scenario where we are standing today. AI is everywhere. Talk about device, instrument, machine, AI is fitted over there. And the change, if you look at the right side down, what has happened, analytics today as a capability is at the fulcrum, is in the center, and the processes are all revolving around that. So that's a sea change, a tectonic change which has happened in the last 10 years in terms of how AI has become relevant for any organization. So, what's driving the AI usage in the market? And as I mentioned, it's not just one paradigm or one kind of a, let's say, metric. I think there are increasingly new set of definitions which are coming and dimensions which are coming, which is making AI more relevant today. One of the very glaring aspects to note out here is AI has really, artificial intelligence has really disrupted the value chain. Go back to the days how we used to kind of look at how the credit card issuance used to happen at the banks, from the banks. 16-step process before you could get the credit card. The turnaround time was 28 days. Today, that process, because of the advent of artificial intelligence, has been truncated to 3 steps, and the turnaround time is just about 7 working days. More importantly, today, if we look at how the customers today have got benefited, I'm sure by our own understanding, by our own experience, customers never had that kind of, I would say, the pampering in terms of how they are hyper personalized, how they are segmented in terms of micro aspects of the campaign, and kind of, let's say, discounts being targeted to one specific segment of the customers. Just to give an example out here, Facebook has 50,000 attributes for one single individual who's a part of the Facebook community. That means in terms of the friend request, in terms of the kind of, let's say, ads we get, the kind of, let's say, events, what we are showcased, it's all the set of device as part of their algorithm. 50,000 assumption caveats goes into one subscriber. That's the kind of, let's say, prowess we are talking about in artificial intelligence. And as we say, various studies, numerous analysts have already kind of really validated this. Look, there is a direct correlation between AI and the fast decision making. I mean, it's period, it's kind of a given out there. And AI has been able to really reduce the decision latency within the organization. Why we are talking about decision making through AI is also something what I'll dwell in the subsequent slides. And plus, the laggards over there who've been missing on the analytics and AI kind of a journey, there is a story to kind of share over there. Different analyst reports, different kind of studies. We are talking about companies which are really leveraging artificial intelligence today. They are far more superior in terms of exceeding the competition by almost 3.6x times. That's the kind of a, let's say, quantum of differentiation we're talking about for the companies who are in a competitive advantage leveraging artificial intelligence. Now, as many of us realize today that the set of the companies, what's there on this slide, for many of us, it's like a digital new age exponential set of companies. For me, these are math houses. Netflix, Uber, Google, Facebook, Amazon, Airbnb, they're all running on IP-able patented algorithms under the hood. And that's the set of trick which is giving them a key differentiation in terms of how they're managing and how they're ramping up their business. Somewhere, I think the whole power of algorithm is making us so relevant over there that today algorithms are being considered as being part of the boardroom discussions. In fact, some of the companies in US, Hong Kong, and one of the companies in China, in fact, have given board seats to the algorithms to take decisions in conjunction with the board. That's a kind of sophistication of algorithms and the kind of, let's say, significance of algorithms we are talking about for the corporates and enterprises today. And this is my own theory. If we move at this pace, how it's going in terms of algorithms really kind of coming out and really kind of deciding how the businesses needs to be coming out in terms of solving a challenge or being disruptive, innovative, or transformative. There is something called an aspect which to me is my own theory out here, but at some aspect it will be a kind of a reality. Many of us trade in scripts and stocks. There are marketplaces virtual today. Everything is kind of on the kind of, let's say, driven virtually. You buy, sell, and script basis the kind of, let's say, decisions you want to take. Now think of a scenario. You are working in a corporate. You are inundated with multiple business challenges on a given day. Many of those challenges do not have a solution. Many of these solutions do not have that resilience or tenability in terms of what and where you need to take these decisions. Think of a scenario where there is a virtual marketplace where there are millions of algorithms being traded. Each and every algorithm is nothing but a patented set of codes and patterns which are created by startups, pure play AI firms, boutique firms, service provider, consulting companies, and all of them have hosted the algorithms over there. Now, these algorithms are segmented by the different business challenges what corporate faces today. Maybe customer experience, supply chain, financial prudence side, governance, risk, and compliance. It could be anything over there. And if you log into these kind of, let's say, virtual marketplaces, hypothetically, if you're talking about, and that's the kind of extent to what an algorithm economy will be all about. You can just go relate to what your problem is, punch in few keywords, you get an algorithm, do a kind of a quick demo, a POC. If you like the algorithm, buy it, test it out in your own kind of a corporate environment. If the results are proven kind of a thing, you're good in terms of what possibly you were struggling to get your business challenge not getting solved is now getting solved through an algorithm economy. That's the kind of sophistication and advancement we are talking about in terms of what algorithms will do in the time to come. Now that's where, if we really look at today from a very, very layman strawman term, artificial intelligence could even enhance an experience. It could even accentuate the kind of, let's say, multiple touch point. I mean, a case in point scenario over there, an accident kind of, let's say, situation. Now you have insurance companies, you have different the forecast, you have the sensors, and somewhere the whole aspect of the claim settlement goes for a toss. Until you look at how do you stitch now multiple experiences together to form a new process. And this to me is nothing but the new value chain which are being created by multiple genres of industry segments today because of leveraging artificial intelligence. And I'll discuss a lot of those examples which are really in today in terms of what organizations have done just to supplement what I'm trying to share out. Now, one quick snapshot I just wanted to provide. I mean, again, this is a representation by no means conclusive. I mean, there are multiple industries today who are leveraging artificial intelligence to the core. I mean, by the set of infographics, you can make out what industries I'm talking about, and there are multiple solutions, offerings, and capabilities which are being defined on a daily basis through artificial intelligence. One of the key thing to kind of just note as part of, I would say, the market relevance is one, the span of impact of artificial intelligence is not just restricted to the chief technology officers or CIOs. We've seen today how other business owners, whether it's CMO or a chief sales officer or even a chief finance officer, is trying to leverage AI for their own set of businesses and functions. Industrialization of AI is already there and it's getting embedded into the entire value chain. And that's spawning a lot of I would say, or rather point solutions and a lot of those targeted capabilities which are coming with the future. And this is where what we're trying to say, how the business challenges are getting solved of different target segments of CXOs by leveraging artificial intelligence. Let me just take a very quick view in terms of what it means for different segments. Again, these are the segments which to me are the future of the industries. When we talk about future of insurance, I've already given you a flavor in terms of what it means today in terms of the claim settlement through an accident scenario out here. Very relevant today in the time of COVID. We are talking about huge significance of artificial intelligence on a real world evidence. We are talking about clinical trials, genomics, and even kind of commercial analytics side of the picture. Now, these are the scenarios today which are changing industry left, right, and center. So there is an inbuilt foundations in terms of how industries have no choice but to kind of innovate, transform, and really get disruptive as part of competitive advantage. Media and entertainment, maybe this is one of the industry which is making a lot of nice, I would say, positivity in terms of their business today and how simple aspect of recommendation engine over there is trying to push new set of contents for different set of genres of users. And I think that's where maybe at some level very soon we are talking about how virtually we'll be able to hold concerts, meetings in a much more productive and beneficial manner and more immersive, more intuitive. The fact over there now, what you actually really saw in the previous set of slides was more about really giving this validation. Look, AI is here to stay and industries are getting benefited. Now, just from a kind of a perspective, I've seen many times the conversations have been towards the skeptics. Hey, still the human performance is kind of, let's say, much over there when it comes to AI prowess. But the fact over there in this one particular slide, I'm trying to allude is the fact over there is machine performance have outpaced human performance. AlphaGo Zero, many of you are aware of this story. Our own Grandmaster Vishwanath Anand, when he takes any kind of a move in a chess game, he can think possibly 380, 90 moves before the next opponent does their move or kind of moves to the next kind of, let's say, aspect. AlphaGo Zero machine can think close to about 400 million times before the opponent takes a move. That's the kind of cognitive power we are talking about in terms of the crunching of the data, which has gone in terms of generating that permutation and combination. Our own Alexa is an example today in terms of what mistakes or kind of anomalies used to happen from a conversational AI to what kind of, let's say, what advancement they are trying to do, which is they would be coming out in 16 different Indian dialects as part of Alexa launch very soon. Now, coming to really the adoption part, I think it's no brainer today. If you look at the right side of the number, which is really revealing that 75% of 200 plus C-suites executive today across Fortune 1000 companies are saying AI will be implemented in the companies. Now, that's a fact over there where we're talking about 85% of the customer interactions will be managed without humans. We've seen also the sophistication of how RPA has really come in and disrupted a lot of those business process management aspects and all. And the underpinning of RPA is nothing but the set of algorithms which is doing the trick. And impact has been significant, whether it's top line, bottom line, operational efficiencies, NPS score. AI has really been able to give that impact what the organizations are looking at today in terms of getting the buck. And so is a scenario which to me is one of the numbers, well, when we were trying to research in terms of what's the kind of, let's say, economic value of the business, when somebody is not able to kind of really catch on to the whole pace of AI, or someone is really skeptical, still reluctant to say, look, I may not be able to adopt AI because to them it's still at the infancy, or to them it's not relevant. That economic value is about $1.2 trillion in terms of the business, which will be stolen from the competitors by the company which have a head start in AI. So that's something which, number apart, it's all about kind of a thing. Are you able to take a vantage position and take a head start and say, look, this is where my journey about devising or crafting or designing my own AI strategy starts. Now, as we move into a scenario, why AI is getting so relevant today in the enterprises, specifically in the time where it's not about innovation, it's not about disruption or transformation, it's actually about survival. And enterprises today have more reliance on what I say, not quick, not nimble, but accurate decision making. And that's where artificial intelligence is challenging the status quo of decision making. As human beings, we take close to about 64 odd decisions on a given day: strategic, tactical, operational. What's my plan for the evening? While it's a lockdown, hardly there are any plan. What is that I'm supposed to do after April 15th when the lockdown period gets over? Possibly. What is my plan for my career? Now, these are some of these decisions. And if you really relate to the corporates, we take those decisions in terms of customers, or let's say the payments, or let's say the competition on a given day. The fact over there is majority of our decisions, what we are taking today in the enterprises, is influenced by our gut, intuition, and maybe influenced by our colleagues, friends, and spouses. That's a fact. Until the algorithms in the next 10 years, and my own presumption is it won't be even 10 years, it will be much more accelerated. The algorithms will start taking decisions for the corporates and also possibly for the humans in a big manner. And it's already happening. Let me give some examples what I'm talking about as part of my own substantiation. I mean, kind of, let's say, backing up on this. Now, the fact over there, coming to the main theme, which is important today as part of our narrative, is enterprises today are struggling. We're all trying to figure out how to get the maximum efficiency, efficacy in terms of the work virtually, remote. Future of work as a part of remote is now a reality. And that's where, whether it's a startup, boutique firm, a global enterprise, or even a kind of a, let's say, medium enterprise, we are all looking. Let's come out of the recovery and think in terms of resurrecting, survival, and then go to the phase, what would be a hyper growth. Over there, to me, as part of this entire cycle, is artificial intelligence influencing three strategic considerations. One, it's time for us to augment intelligence. What I say, distill signals from the noise. Second, the rhetoric again is again that when the normalcy come in, the recovery happens, are we still going to push with the automation agenda? To me, it's not about automation, it's about rebalancing the human and machine equation. And I'll talk about that in details for these two. The last, often neglected, we are going through a challenge where many of the things what we are trying to do today is not working out. A case in point is the lockdown. A lockdown is a lockdown. People are not supposed to step out. What you do when still you have rules, regulations, and it doesn't work? Somewhere, the aspect of nudge, understanding the human behavior comes into the picture. And I'll talk about what it means even for enterprises today. The first instance, I think, very topical scenario today. We have dearth and paucity of testing kits. We're taking time in terms of really going through these tests of whether a person is positive or negative on the COVID side. Now, think of this scenario. A radiologist takes about 15 to 20 minutes to analyze an MRI, CT scan, or an X ray, and the error rate is 3 to 5%. The same job, using deep learning algorithms, millions of X rays, CT scan, and MRIs can be done in few milliseconds using artificial intelligence, and the error rate is just 0.2 to 0.3%. An example over there are many kind of, let's say, now solutions, products available over there. Something in the chest today. I mean, our chest can have 15 different symptoms, and that's where COVID is all about. I mean, how it enters through the kind of lungs and then goes into the different part of the body. I mean, that aspect can be detected through understanding how these patient data records can be linked, and then kind of analyzing the whole aspect about looking at different kind of, let's say, scenarios in terms of what decision needs to be taken. This particular example, for many of you, just looking at the slide picture, could be, yeah, it's kind of a warehouse and there are closed circuit cameras. The CCTVs are there for security infringement, any kind of a mugging, or just to ensure there is no trespassing, right? That's not the case out here. This is a scenario of e-commerce giant, warehouse based out of China. They're not trying to kind of just look at CCTVs to kind of understand the scenarios in terms of security. The HR managers out here are looking at the video feeds on a real-time basis. Millions of transactions happen in this warehouse on any given day. Fatigue runs high, 2,200 employees work in different shifts. Today, many of the spot awards are given on ad hoc basis. HR managers out here are looking at the real-time video feeds and trying to analyze at what stage fatigue hits optimal. They stop and pause the production, go on the floor, award the employees who have shown fatigues, and resume the operations. This is a scenario where the decision making gets enhanced by really looking at what I say, image, voice, text, and video analysis, which has never been thought before in terms of what we say the new data sources. Let me kind of show you a video feed.
Basement! 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 Let's go, Rob. Let's go. Bring it over here. Come on, come on, come on. That's right. Something catch up.
Well, this is a live video feed of a Super Bowl match which happened a couple of years back, and many of you who've been tuned to this game, equivalent of an IPL in India, close to about $160 billion of ad spend happens in one single Super Bowl match. One TV commercial average out to be close to about 3.5 to $4 million. Imagine the stake which is there in terms of the money by the marketeers on the brands, what they're advertising. And as it happens, if you are the one as part of the marketing team spend money and your brand is not visible in the match because there's so much of clutter, there's so much going on, the CEO definitely would ask you and your team, where was the brand? Until you showed her this particular feed.
Basement! 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 Let's go, Rob. Let's go. Bring it over here. Come on, come on, come on. That's right. Something catch up.
As you can see now with this labeling and annotating of the images, you can see the brands which has been highlighted on the jersey of the players, the turf of the stadium, the galleries of the players. on a real time basis by a simple marketing mix attribution technique. And this is where the whole aspect of decision making for you in this scenario, in terms of getting a bang for the buck, what you spend money as part of the marketing gets absolutely amplified through this technique. Moving on, in terms of another strategic consideration in terms of what enterprises should be doing as part of survival strategy is about automation. There is a lot of rhetoric against automation will make humans lose the job. I have a different opinion out here, and let me explain what I'm trying to talk about. This particular aspect is a real time kind of an example, a robotic arm which is installed in Union Square, California, in one of the pharmacy chain. 7,000 deaths happen in US annually. Wrong prescription of drugs, $14 billion worth of lawsuit gets filed, and this pharmacy chain said, look, enough is enough. They came out with this robotic arm which has sensors. So as you enter the store, at the entrance of the store, you're greeted by this robotic arm. She takes your prescription, goes through the entire hallways of the store, picks up the medicine, also relates to the different symptoms you had from the same kind of a disease, because let's realize in US, the patient data records are linked, picks up the medicine, comes to the entrance of the store in flat 45 seconds to 1 minute. You pay by a contactless credit card, move out of the store in 90 minutes. Accuracy rate is 99.8%. And the first question you'll talk about, or rather think about, as in the case of radiologists in the previous example, hey, what's the job of a radiologist? And in this case, what's the job of a pharmacist? Aren't they at the risk of losing their job? Well, what everything we'll talk about today in terms of these revolutions, what we're talking about is it's not about the daily chores or the mundane task, what every elevated job is trying to do. It's about the core job, which will get more amplified and translated into meaningful aspects for the humanity. The job of a radiologist and a pharmacist is not to look at the x rays or not to just provide medicines. The job for both of them is to counsel the patients about their well-being. And somewhere that's getting lost in the menial and the daily chores. That's where machines will take over and humans and the jobs will get more elevated in terms of the next level of what we say productivity, as well as what it means as a part of the core job. Preventive maintenance of trains again is a scenario where it's all about how the fatalities can be stopped. I mean, in terms of a moving train, the most fragile piece of aspect which can go wrong is the doors getting opened, not getting shut, or the doors kind of not getting locked. A scenario happened a few months back in Japan. A 250-kilometer bullet train, 250 kilometers per hour bullet train actually had for 4 minutes door not getting closed in a moving scenario. Now that's where a lot of the stuff in terms of IoT sensors, data talking to each other, giving those preemptive signals to the OEM manufacturers and suppliers to ensure that the parts are well kind of a, let's say, attempted before any fatality or eventuality happens. And as it happens, it's not about the automation in total. I think one of the example out here, this is a picture from Tesla manufacturing facility uh, in Vegas, Nevada. Elon Musk was of the opinion, and he runs his entire company through tweets, that he will build a 100% automated plant until he realized what he mentioned excessive automation at Tesla was a mistake. To be precise, my mistake, humans are underrated. And that's where the rebalancing of the human machine equation will start happening. Coming to the third, often very, very neglected, but very pivotal, significant piece of aspect which companies need to consider strategically is how do you incorporate human behavior? You can have a best of the product, you can lose a market share because the product is not getting adopted. You have the functionalities which are top of the league, but you don't know how to mass market. That's where some of the understanding of market research is now getting I would say, morphed into human behavior understanding, the cognitive neuroscience aspect, the nudge theory is coming into the picture. Let me show you with some examples. An ideal brushing time for a kid is 2 minutes. And for some of us who have the kids, we realize every day in the morning when they have to go to the school, it's a very, very strenuous ask. Less than 2 minutes, you show the kids. I mean, through this particular app, which you can download, Oral-B has this toothbrush, which has an IoT sensor, but you can download this app on your mobile. You show the kid when he or she does a brushing less than 2 minutes with a frowning, screeching emoji. And we know that today a lot of our life is governed by emojis and emoticons. The kid will feel, or rather, will get compelled to brush it again. More than 2 minutes, it shows different contours where the kid brush. Now the emoji is smiling. There is a happy jingle. The kid goes to school. The app and the brush now is being used more by the adults. 2 minutes is a long brushing time. Many of us fear going into this scenario, claustrophobic, agonizing, and understand if the plight of the kids who have to go through this exercise. 80% is a sedation rate when they have to enter this particular machine. Until one smart fellow thought about this change. I'm sure now, even people who have not tried would like to get into this particular machine. 10% is now the sedation rate, what it used to be 80%. Just a UI UX, simple design change, simple kind of a behavioral change can draw a lot of adoption amongst the mass, I would say, population. And let's look at this video feed, which will best exemplify what should be done in the COVID scenario. Well, I think the video speaks for itself. I mean, jaywalking, which is a big nuisance in every geography, got mitigated by a simple solution of making you see the face of the death when you're not supposed to cross the road. So simple techniques about really nudges, as Dr. Richard Thaler propagated about a few years back through his book Nudge, today is standing more validated with artificial intelligence, where the combination of AI with cognitive neuroscience, behavioral science is compelling organization to take a stance in terms of what and how the product should be marketed, adopted, and fast accelerated. So eventually, if I just paraphrase what I just talked about, the new normal today for enterprise survival is nothing but a trifecta of augmenting the intelligence, automate and learn, and introducing cognitive neuroscience in the organization. Now, well, that being said, strategically, now if you have to really look, how do we lead with artificial intelligence in these disrupted times? I mean, good part is that we have a lot of examples in terms of what organizations are doing, but strategically, when we look, there are some dimensions to be considered. One, it's time that artificial intelligence will enable reimagine the customer experience, big time. I think that's where a lot of effort, a lot of interventions will happen, where customers will be kind of micro segmented in terms of their wants, needs, and requirements. And that's where artificial intelligence will distill in terms of the relevancy of each and every customer. The second thing, which will happen very significantly through the customer experience set of transformation, it will unleash new product and services. Artificial intelligence will kind of pave way to create new product and services. And finally, it will become a force multiplier for transforming the processes and the business today, because that would be a need. How do you recoup the lost time of the COVID? How do you resurrect your business in a quick, agile manner? How do you ensure you don't lose the market competition, or rather, you don't lose the market share what you had before? These are the things where artificial intelligence will come into the picture. And as we say, this will become now a new normal in business strategy. And go back to the limited example, what we're talking about. Eventually, the holy grail of this customer experience, innovation of product and services, and transforming the businesses will decide the business strategies for the organization in the time to come.
Brussels Motor Show, the biggest car event in Belgium, where all car brands show off their newest technologies. But it was Volvo who hijacked all the attention with the first car that could recruit its own technicians. Volvo presents the recruiting car. 200 job openings were announced on social media, inviting everyone to come and check out the first car that recruits its own engineers. To conduct the interviews, we tapped into the car's technology.
Welcome, Oliver. Glad to see you put on your blue shirt for the interview. Can you show me where my electric compressor is?
Sure. Here.
Please allow me to play some piano music to make you feel more comfortable. Tell me, why should I hire you?
I've been passionate about. By applying AI, we could actually test social and technical skills and make unbiased evaluations of all applicants. These were sent to Volvo's HR managers for further interviews. Changing the conversation from cars to jobs got us national media attention.
L'entretien d'embauche sera d'abord mené par un véhicule parce que l'intelligence artificielle.
70% of all news coverage about the Brussels Motor Show was dedicated to Volvo. More than 1 in 2 Belgians was reached through PR coverage alone, leading to 300% more price requests. And the 200 vacancies, well, they were all filled.
Well, that's how the future of work looks like for many of us who would now be preparing for future interviews virtually, and many of the enterprises will look at virtually. Please realize your facial expressions, your voice, any kind of a modulation, any lump in the throat would be treated as a sign of weakness. So be prepared in terms of how artificial intelligence will start analyzing and deciding the future of work. So that's all I had. I'll just spend a couple of minutes in terms of what AIQRATE is all about. We are the first firm talking about AI strategy for transformation, innovation, disruption, and now survival. A pure play consulting and advisory firm. And what we do is to curate, design, and craft AI strategy for the organizations, startups, boutique firms, enterprises to accentuate their decision making and business performance. Just a kind of a sneak peek into our credential. We have 5 set of advisory services, 7 business segments. I'll talk about that. 47 consulting offering. These are bespoke, top of the league, but only on the artificial intelligence side. 23 ready to deploy frameworks, tools, methodologies, ontologies, and playbooks. And 12 engagement models. And the team, what we have together, have aggregated and clocked close to about 3,000 AI consulting projects over our, I would say, set of tenure. We've been instrumental in setting up about 100 plus AI Center of Excellence and have done 40 CXO level masterclasses in terms of evangelization. We have onboarded, outside of 3 of us as our co-founders, 5 strategic AI partners, and we have a very high and rich repository of AI publication and thought leadership, which you can visit on AIQRATE.ai. This is a quick view of our advisory services in terms of what we do. We serve 7 business segments, as I talked about: enterprises, GCCs, startups, PE and VC firms, SMBs, academic institutions, and public institutions and industry consortia. And this is a quick view of our AI consulting offerings for enterprises, where we offer a range and end-to-end spectrum of AI interventions for enterprises. Thank you so much. Ready to take questions.
Thank you so much, Samir.